after the first season of Riverdale premiered, I think I went like 6 months without an audition.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely like a sobering moment, a humbling moment because I remember when we found out that the show was premiering, all my friends, or that it got picked up the series, my friends were like, "You're never gonna have to worry again. Like you're set," you know.
Yeah.
Um, and that was just not the case at all. The show premiered and it did really well, um, and that was, I mean, it was amazing for me to be a part of that show, and like it came with a fan base and an opportunity to like try, like you said, travel the world and meet with so many different people. But as far as just like straight roles and auditions and work related, like acting work related stuff, it was pretty barren for a while, and
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds and Suits. Today my guest is Trevor Stines. You guys may recognize Trevor as Jason Blossom from the TV show Riverdale. He's also one of the nicest guys I've ever met in Hollywood. He's so generous with his time, very cool, and very thoughtful. So I think you guys are going to enjoy this interview. We talk about all kinds of things, the possibility of him ever competing in the Schmodown. We talk about his book of poetry, the actual process of booking Riverdale, his career immediately following Riverdale. We talk about Taylor Sheridan movies and Denis Villeneuve and a lot of other things that I love talking about. So stick around. Trevor is a gentleman, and I really, really appreciate him giving the time. Today, a big time thank you to the Infinity members of the Nerd Network. I am straightening my tie for you right now. John Patterson, CJ Robinson, Nicole Krafik, Lucas Shashek, Charlotte Gherkin, and Jake Yacovetta. You guys are invaluable to the growth of this channel. Remember, when the video is over, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and leave a comment below, guys. You're going to hear a couple different patrons have their questions asked during this episode. So remember, if you are a patron, you have the ability to submit one question a week for the guests that I'm going to be interviewing. So stay tuned for that and make sure to get your questions in. All right, guys, enjoy the interview, and thanks to Trevor Stines for doing this. Have a good one, guys. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds and Suits. Today, I have a guest who you guys have seen on television. That's right, somebody who is legitimately famous. One of my friends from the same hometown I'm from, and somebody I'm really, really excited to talk to about their story. Today, we've got Riverdale's own Trevor Stines. What's going on, man?
Hello. Yes, you guys may have seen me on TV, but you probably have not heard me on TV. I'm here, and I'm really excited to sit down with you. So.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming and doing this. Is that the number one thing that you like, jokes people make at conventions? Like, I didn't know what your voice sounded like. That's like a thing you hear?
Yes, 100%. Like when I meet fans in real life, or even just like on social media, if I put something on Instagram or whatever, like 10 times out of 10, there will be a comment or a response where like, oh my gosh, it's either like, oh my gosh, you're alive. Wow. Or, oh my gosh, you can speak. So... Which, yes, both those things are true.
But the fan base surrounding, obviously, your character, Jason Blossom, from the show Riverdale, loosely based on years and years of Archie comics, is a character that's in enough episodes, a significant number of episodes, that you're considered and widely regarded as part of the initial season cast. I mean, you're like a series regular. That's
series regular.
You're in like every episode. So like when you go to these things, people have a real attachment to you, which is crazy considering you don't speak in the show. That's gotta be a unique occurrence.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. It is kind of wild to me, like, to be, I think because, Riverdale as a project, just as like a creative project, it was something that I was a part of from the inception, right? Like we did the pilot, and then, we're 4 seasons deep, and yeah, like you said, I've managed to appear like in every season so far, in a good number of episodes, and yeah, I think like the response of just kind of being like, even though my character kind of appears sparsely, he's interwoven into the narrative pretty deftly, and I think fans have a big response to that because they love the show. They really love the show, and they all find different aspects of it to attach to and to just kind of be inspired by. And I guess I'm one of those aspects sometimes.
Do you watch the show? Like, do you like watch it weekly, or did you watch it before? Or are you still attached to it?
Yeah, I watched the entire first season, and I now find myself playing catch up a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because I don't always have time to watch it like every week. So I haven't seen every episode. I have, but I still try to like stick I try to like, you know what's going on in the show. I'll
Yeah,
go
yeah, of course.
and like read people's reactions to episodes and see how people are feeling and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, the funny part about this is most of the people watching this probably know you from Riverdale. I mean, it's a very significant show. It's huge
Yeah.
right now. But we kind of have roots and are connected through other means, which is really funny to me because I ended up covering Riverdale on AfterBuzz TV, and then you came on as a guest on AfterBuzz after I'd already met you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you were part of the whole digital fandom of Collider and Screen Junkies, doing that whole thing, and because you're a huge movie guy, like a massive movie fan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love film. And so when I got the opportunity to, because I think we met on Screen Junkies, right? On a show that
I
they
think
were
on
doing. And
episode of TV Fights we did together. I think, yeah.
And so, and I like had kind of consumed the content they put out because I just love talking about movies. I love movie discussion, TV discussion, things like that. So I was familiar with it. So I was really excited for that opportunity. Um, and then it just kind of went from there, like Screen Junkies and then like Collider and all that stuff.
Yeah. That's that big world, and so yeah, you've guessed it on the shows. I know at one point you've come to a handful of Schmodown tapings, and I know
Yeah.
that you were interested at one point in competing. Is that still
Oh
something that
man.
you have interest in doing? You think you'd be good?
That's the thing, man. Like I love the Schmodown, and man, I've watched you compete a
Yeah,
handful of times, and oh my gosh, there was this match that you won. I don't remember who it was against, but you won, and I was like sitting in the audience. I
yeah,
lost my mind. You could probably hear me screaming like at the top of my lungs. I was just so hyped for you. And that's the thing, Christian Harloff, who runs the Schmodown, he's actually texted me a couple times to see if I was interested in doing the show. But man, I am so nervous about that kind of thing. Like
yeah,
I have like I feel like I do watch a lot of movies, but like my knowledge base is pretty niche. Like things that
yeah.
I'm like I know for sure that I could answer under pressure. But
You're a
I
pretty
don't know,
smart
man. You
dude,
never
though,
know.
man. Yeah, I feel like if you got put in the right situation, you could excel. It'd be fun.
No,
And now
you're
with
just
COVID,
flattering me.
no, I mean, dude, I mean, you were good in TV fights. Like we've had a lot of conversations about TV and film. I think you know a lot more than you give yourself credit for. And now with COVID, I mean, everybody's just competing from their home. The league right now is entirely online. So, you could do it from right there, dude. You could be
Yeah,
competing
hey,
right here,
that's
just
true.
like this.
That's true. Yeah, I guess it's a little less pressure than like the studio lights and everything.
Yeah, well, it's crazy though. It's always like hands up. You got to make sure you're not cheating, and everybody's got their hands up. Like
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, that was a lot of fun, and the other connection you and I have that we go way back is that we're both from Seattle or
Mm-hmm.
the Pacific Northwest,
Yep.
and I don't know, you guys that are watching, like some of you guys probably remember way back in like the 90s and 2000s, there was a lot of like talent schools they'd scout in like malls and places like that. And we both kind of got connected through one of those types of organizations in Seattle. You and I both have that same background. We have that same original manager in Seattle, which is so crazy in such a small world because
I know.
that was my portal into entertainment. That was the thing that literally like directed me towards it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that is just such a crazy coincidence, especially because like the story of how I initially like met them and got involved in them is so random. Like I was driving home from somewhere. I was like 17 years old, and I got and I just heard like an ad on the radio for them that they were like doing an open call, like you could come to Seattle
Yeah.
and just meet with them, or and it was just I'd never really considered a career in entertainment. And then I just like on a whim, I was like, yeah, sure. And here I am.
Yeah, dude.
So
Yeah.
however many years later, it's crazy, man. And to have just like such a kind of a random occurrence in my life, like if I hadn't been on that station, right, like at that time,
right,
I wouldn't be here. And then like I would have never met you and all that stuff. So it is kind of crazy that we share that like mutual history.
Well, so you attribute, so you really the same way I do. You attribute John at that time. Was it John Robert Powers or was it Seattle Talent when you met them?
It was Seattle Talent when I.
So you attribute Seattle Talent to really directing you into entertainment. Like you didn't have aspirations into that at all before that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a huge step, definitely. Like I did theater, growing up. I think I started in like 6th grade. I just really loved like theater, and acting was really fun. but I'd always thought of it as kind of a hobby thing, and yeah, it was a meeting them and just seeing kind of like I think it was like seeing the potential that they thought I had. It
Yeah.
was yeah, it really like kind of gave me the belief that I could pursue a career in this field. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, man, because you talk about your story, and I really I want to stick with this for a minute here because I think it would be fascinating for a lot of people to know that are not from Los Angeles, kind of how that works, because I do think there's a stigma with the talent school sort of format. I think people
Yeah.
have a stigma that it's like it's somehow a scam, that they're going to sell you on this idea that you're a big
Right.
star and then it's not going to go anywhere. And I think it's like a lot of things. Like I would liken it to when you're in school and you have a teacher who really believes in you, and you have a teacher
Mhm.
who's really like, I think your ideas are great. I think you're in a great position. You have so much potential. And as a student, it's your responsibility to take that encouragement and direct that talent or that interest you have into the field you want to be. They can't make it for you because they're going to
Right.
see potential in a lot of people, right? They're going to see potential in dozens of students every year. But how many of those students are going to go on to be in Ivy League schools and have huge careers? And like that's, and I think it's very similar with the talent school stuff, because I was in a similar position when I met those guys back in, and I met them probably back in like, I'm 32. I'm a little older than you, but I think I'm older than you. I actually don't have no idea how old you are, but I'm assuming I'm older
I'm
than you.
45.
Yeah, you're
I'm actually
40. You look
45.
great, man. You look great. Very fair skinned.
Yeah, I
Um,
moisturize.
yeah. I think I must have met him in '03 is probably when I met him.
Mhm.
And um, I was like, dude, have you ever seen any of these pictures of me from back when I was a teenager and I had the white
Oh,
leather
yes.
jacket?
Yes, I
Yeah.
have. They're excellent.
Yeah. And I thought I was Axl Rose straight up. I had a white leather jacket, I had the sunglasses, the hair was down to here, and I walked into the office and I think I like put my feet up on the counter or something. Like I did something
Wow.
totally fucking
Bold.
outrageous. And
Bold.
Michael McKay, who's like my oldest mentor and a
Yeah,
longtime friend,
love
one
him.
of my favorite people I've ever known in my life. I remember, I think he like looked through he peeked through and he was like, this fucking guy, who is this fucking guy? Or he didn't say it, but like, that's the attitude. And it just, but obviously I had so much brash confidence. That was like and they directed that, right? They saw that and they were like, we can turn this into something. And then that kind of sent me here to LA. It's a very similar story to you. So,
Yeah.
so you started there and they took an interest in you. You took probably all the classes, the commercial print classes, the on-camera stuff, the runway stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was actually an interesting story, right? Because what they and a lot of these talent schools do is they like get a group of people that they, find interested in or think can succeed, and they typically will send them to like a convention, like a talent convention, right?
Yeah,
They'll
like
like train them
IMTA
for
or
exactly. They'll
IPOP, like
train
that, right?
train them for a certain amount of time, and then send them off and see how they do, and then they have a chance to meet like managers and agents and things like that. They found me like super late in the game. There was a convention, I think in like 2 months,
Yeah.
um, and they usually train. It was, or maybe it was even less than that. Maybe it was like a month, but they usually train for like a year or like half a year to a year for it, right? And they found me. I think I had like 2 weeks of lessons before they were like getting ready
Yeah,
to send
right.
everybody off,
Fingerprints
right?
and all that.
Yeah. So they were like, listen, this is kind of unorthodox. Like, we don't usually, like, they basically just told me, like, it's super late. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we want you to come with us to this convention and we'll see what happens. And so I was like, all right. So I didn't actually get as much time with the classes and their teachers as most people would. But it worked out.
So you went to IPOP or IMTA, which one was it at the time?
Yeah, I went to IMTA New York. So they do
Okay.
IMTA, that company or that convention. They have the biannual. They have one in Los Angeles, one in New York. I went to the New York one.
Okay. Okay, cool. And so you went out there and like, what's that for somebody who doesn't know what that's like? What is that like? You go and you compete in a bunch of different stuff? Because I never did one of these.
Yeah, yeah. It's honestly, it was probably still to this day one of the craziest weeks I've ever had. Um, yeah, you go and you basically, at least when I did it, I don't know how they are run today, but like you're assigned a number, you go and stay like if you're not local, you stay in this hotel where the convention is held, and basically every day you're given a schedule of like different some kind of, they're pretty much like mini competitions. They have different categories for like monologue, like on camera, commercial acting, things like that. And you prepare material beforehand, and then you go to these competitions at your scheduled time. You have your number like pinned to your shirt, and you just perform. You do that for like a week. They have, and then like judges deliberate. There's tons of like managers and agents in the audience like watching, and then they have, I think, like 2 nights of an award ceremony where they basically like choose the people who excelled in all of these different categories, and they hand out awards. And then there's so the second day is basically like the meet and greet. So managers and agents will, if they like you, they'll write your number down, and then you can go and meet with them on that second day. And you just sit down and have like a conversation with them.
It's so interesting too, because the people, the managers that you're meeting, you know, the agents, they all have to be, at this point, this is a few years ago, but especially like now today, they have to be so plugged into all the different things that are happening, because content doesn't exist like it used to. Like 10 years ago, content was so much more traditional. Now, like streaming services, television, movies, digital. I mean, like you could literally be scouting somebody to turn them into a TikTok star. I feel like
I was going to say, like even TikTok is like a huge, you know, people, I know a lot of managers and agents are signing people off of like YouTube and TikTok and things like that, you know, which it's an interesting way that the industry is kind of starting to lean, but we'll see how it works out.
Well, it's also fascinating too, because there was a time when YouTube and the concept of YouTube, like being a YouTuber, was like had this like sort of stigma attached to it, that it wasn't legitimate or something, you know. And it went through the various phases. When I had Dan Merle on here a few months ago, we had a big conversation about it, because he just left Screen Junkies and he's doing his own thing now, and he's doing really well. It's awesome to see. And he was sort of saying, like, you know, initially you being a YouTuber was like, it was a lot of people in their living rooms. I mean, very much like you can see my living room here behind me, and, you know, like all talking to a camera. And then, you know, the big corporations came in, media companies, they tried to buy all the content and sort of homogenize it. And then the bottom fell out because there was no money for it. And so now it's sort of returning back to a creator model where like, but if you've stuck it out and you're still in the game, because YouTube is so saturated now, you have to like be serious about it, because there's no easy money in YouTube anymore. You can't just like make a bunch of money as a YouTuber. You have to really eke it out.
Yeah, it's amazing, because like we're kind of at this crossroads, like you said, where because I feel like with YouTube as a platform, you always had to be pretty dedicated to it to like really succeed. You know, I know like YouTube has their AdSense program, and it's shifted from a place where like people can create their own content and like, you know, make some money, where it's like really, I mean, YouTube is a foundation for careers now, you know, like people, like a lot of people have their entire livelihood on the platform. And I think the biggest reason for that is that its user base has just continuously like expanded over time. You know, when I was growing up, I can't remember the year that YouTube like started, but you know, I was there like in the early days on YouTube, and it was always fun. You know, I would always like go on and watch videos and stuff, but it's really like evolved as a platform for everybody. Like it really is a place where anybody can find a niche and even make a career out of that niche, you know, as long as they are, you know, willing to stick to it.
Yeah, it does seem like, and so much of the direct to sort of customer, direct to fan, supporter, however you want to call it, like that supporter model of super chats and Streamlabs and Patreon and merch, like you don't have to have millions of subs anymore, I think, to be successful. You just have to have a good product and be committed to it. So now, okay, so that kind of brings me then, you finish the stuff in New York and you meet a bunch of people, and one of those people, I'm assuming, is the person that when you get to Los Angeles is your person, right? You have a manager or an agent you meet.
Yeah. So actually, I was really lucky when I went. You know, I was really fortunate to perform pretty well in the eyes of the judges and the guests, and I met with some really amazing people, including, you know, managers and agents, and I did end up like with some consultation from the guys at Seattle Talent, guys and girls, I signed with an agent and a manager here in Los Angeles, which is really what prompted my move here, from Washington. I think if I didn't have that, it would have been a lot harder for me to commit to coming here, which, I have to say is I know that I have a way luckier situation than a lot of creative people or a lot of actors have when they're starting out. I don't know anybody else who moved here like already set up with an agent and manager. And I know a lot of actor friends who like are struggling trying to find representation. And I've just always really felt lucky that I kind of had that starting out. I mean, I worked for it. I definitely worked really hard to achieve that, but it's, not everybody has that opportunity.
I definitely think so, and I give a lot of credit to those people we talked about at Seattle Talent for having that vision to kind of connect you with those people and support you through the process, because I do think, again, you're one of those people who took the direction of those people that saw the potential in you, and then you worked your butt off to get down here and make it actually happen. And like the funny part is in 2009 when I moved here for good, I had the same thing. I had an agent, a manager. That they set me up with, that I had met in various, because it used to be when I did it, I never went to one of the conventions, but they would bring in once a month an agent or a manager from LA.
Right.
And they'd be set up at like a Nordstrom or like a Macy's or something. There'd be like a table and like kids with their parents, because a lot of younger kids would be lined up with like their book. You'd wait in line.
Right.
You'd go like meet them for a second, and they'd take a look at you, and maybe they'd, a callback or something like that. Sort of like simulating like a little bit of an audition. Like it's a little different because there's not a big line of people. You're usually walking into a room, but it's not that different from a casting. Like you've done print stuff. You know how those work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lines and tables.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so I moved down here with the same thing, with a talent agency that I think is no longer around, called Hines and Hunt. And that was great. And I had, support and people and all that in the same kind of way. The funny thing is, I was auditioning for series leads and CW shows. I didn't book anything, but you did. You came out here and you auditioned for that stuff. That's exactly what you booked, which is the dream of the young actor, right? So talk to me about that as you get down here. How far from the time you moved here to the time you booked it?
Yeah. What's kind of crazy is that now that I've been here for many, coming up on like 5 or 6 years, it doesn't feel like that long. Like it feels like it happened pretty soon. But I remember being kind of in the trenches with that, and it felt like a long time, because I was working really hard all the time, and my manager is a guy who was constantly pushing me very hard, to improve. And I can't remember the exact timetable. I think I was here for more than a year at the time that Riverdale came along. But it was a crazy experience, like kind of just going from doing these like student films. And then I think I had like one ultra low budget movie that I hope no one ever sees. And, and then it was Riverdale, then it was this one audition that turned out to be, one of the biggest shows, at least, when it was airing. I just remember the reaction of the first season. Like it just was way bigger than any of us expected it to be.
It was a huge show. I mean, I remember the Comic-Con year, which was probably I can't remember. That was probably in preparation for season 2, would be my guess, was the Comic-Con year. But it was all of Comic-Con was Riverdale. I just remember being down there and like the IMDb yacht, like it was all just decked out. It was just Riverdale. It was felt like it was the major show. It was on the same level as like all the DC shows they were promoting.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy. And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, even now kind of looking back, I wouldn't even say that my life has certainly changed a lot. Riverdale opened up so many opportunities for me just because, that's kind of how the industry works. You on a popular product, a show or a movie, and you're then able to do more things, and it did offer me a lot of opportunities. I mean, I probably wouldn't have been invited to go on TV fights if I hadn't been on a popular TV show, you know. And but even then, like, you know, I feel like my life hasn't changed, even though I know it has. I feel like my life hasn't changed that much. Like I still kind of feel like I'm in the trenches a little bit, you know. I still feel like I'm working really hard for things that I want to do.
I know what you mean. Obviously, I don't know what you mean in the sense that I can relate to your opportunity because you know you. I've never. I didn't book Riverdale, though I did audition for it. Actually, story for another time. But
Oh,
I think I've told you that story before.
yeah,
Maybe not.
yeah, maybe
not. No, but in terms of like where I was when I first got here in 2009 to now, and how certainly I'm further along in my career now than I was then.
Mm-hmm.
But it still feels kind of like I'm living the same existence in a lot of ways. It
Yeah.
doesn't really. There are things, right? Like that same way I'm sure you can look at it, right? Like I've seen you fly around the world to conventions and be stopped by fans and sign autographs and like you know, you have millions of followers on social media. I mean, like you're living a different world than you were 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
But even so, like I'm sure you still wake up a lot of days and just be like, man, I sure want to make it, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. Like it really is like that. Like I wake up and I'm like, yeah, just like you said, like, God, what can I do today? Like how can I get closer? You know?
Yeah. So I've seen you channel some of that artistic energy into other things. You released the book of poetry. Was it last year or the year before that?
I think it was the year before. I
2018?
think, yeah. I think in December it'll be the 2-year like anniversary of it.
So talk to me about that a little bit, man. I didn't even know you were, you know, a poet. I didn't know that was something that you were interested in doing prior to seeing you promote the book.
Yeah, it wasn't something. It's kind of ironic because like it's not something that I'm super public about in general, and then but I put out a book and promoted it and stuff. But yeah, I just like I think of creativity as almost like an energy source. Like I think of it as this drive that some people have, and I mean, a lot of people like here in Los Angeles, you and myself, it's like this drive that kind of sits within somebody. And I think that it finds its way into a medium that fits, like not every creative person can like go and paint a beautiful painting, but they can do other things. Like they could write a novel or, direct an amazing movie. There's all these different kinds of creativity, different outlets for this same kind of creative drive. And for me, like acting obviously is a huge, it takes that form for me in a really big way in my life. But I still feel like I got more creativity that doesn't get like expressed through just acting. And I really took to poetry. I have always read poetry, and I was at a point in my life where I was reading a lot. And I just started kind of like, I mean, it sounds super like mushy and cliche, but like I just started like kind of writing down thoughts in like stanzas, and eventually I just had written enough that I was like, I think I want to put this out. I was really inspired by other like contemporary poets who've done similar things, and so I was like, yeah, I think I want to like put this out and like share it with people. Even if nobody reads it, or if it's not like a smash success, like just the fact that it's out there for people to find, I really dig. So I just kind of like worked on the book for about a year. Got cover art. I like formatted it and edited and I basically took on all that work myself, and I put it out, and it's really fun. Like I love it's still, even though the book's been out for a while, it's something that a lot of people still don't really know about me. And I'm always like really jazzed when a fan will like tweet me a picture of them with the book. And people tell me that they really enjoy it. And that means a lot to me,
Would you say that it's gotten the response you hoped it got, or have you been happy with the response?
Yeah, I've been thrilled. I tried not to have any expectations putting it out because I knew that I would be disappointed if I did. You know,
Yeah.
and I mean, just the fact that anybody likes it, I think is shocking to me, especially now. Like, a couple years on, or a year and a half on, I'll like go back and read through it, and I'm proud of all the work that I did on it, and I'm still proud of a lot of the actual like poetry that's in the book.
Yeah.
But I think like even now as a creative person, as a writer, my tastes have changed, and I look at it and I'm like, man, I need an update. Like I need to do another one.
The second book.
Just
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see. I've got a lot of material written. We'll see where that goes.
When I moved here in 09, originally I was going to be a musician. That was the big passion for me. I had this record I was going to release, and I had one out with a band, and I'm still touring. And then after a few years, I kind of moved on from that because I never really was able to drum up enough momentum to do it really as a career. Like there was nobody looking for that material, right? I would do it,
Right.
and I would like it, and I'd perform it, and it was fun. My friends would come out. You'd ask your friends to come and support, but I kind of changed careers, and then back in 2015, I got into hosting, and so now more recently, I started doing this show called Song from the Scene, where I'm basically talking about the best song in a scene, and then I cover the song on my guitar.
I've seen it. I saw your you did a song from Sing Street.
Yeah, totally. I fucking love Sing Street.
Yeah, Sing Street is one of my favorite movies, like of all time. And you did a great job. I watched that, and I mean, I love that song, and yeah, you killed it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. That means a lot.
Yeah, I'm not blowing smoke either. Like it was dope.
Thanks, dude. Well, yeah. So basically, what I realized when I did that is I decided to announce. I not to announce. I thought about this, and I was like, you know what? I've written like 100 songs in my life. I want to release a solo record, like just like you're talking about the poems. I was like, you know what? I've made all this stuff, and I want to work on. I want to put it out there. I'm going to press it and actually do it. I'm going to pay a producer and make this album.
Hell yeah.
And so I announced it like 2 weeks ago, and one of the coolest things, this idea that I had, because again, I relate to what you're saying about you just sort of had thoughts and you wrote them down and you were like, I want to share them with people. I want to like have that people reflect that energy back at me and see what they think. And so I decided to do this thing for my patrons where twice a month I'm doing like an hour long private studio session where I'm basically just trying out material and like showing them what I'm working on. Like this is a half song, or I'm thinking about this, or what do you think of this melody? And I just did the first one. It was so cool to play through stuff and have an instant audience to be like, and maybe it's a little dangerous as an artist to get that kind of initial feedback on unformed ideas because you don't want to throw stuff out. Yeah. But it was really cool. I really enjoyed it, and so I'm looking forward to it. I think in the same way you're talking about. It's like totally different than what I'm used to doing.
Yeah, that's sick. That's awesome. And the thing is too is like music production and things like that. It's so much more accessible now than it was, back in 2009. There's just so many like avenues for people to kind of get their art out there in the world.
Yeah, in a huge way. So when you actually booked Riverdale, like when you found out you had the audition, the process, did you audition for Rappaport or did you send in a self-tape first? How'd you do it?
I sent in a tape, man. It was so like it was so anticlimactic, like I just, I've told this story before, but I was having like a really bad day, bad day. And my agents sent me an email. They were like, hey, we need this self-tape in an hour. And I was just like, and you probably know, like an hour is not enough time to do a complete self-tape. And I was like all on my own. Like I didn't have anybody to help me film it. So I just, man, I went through hell just trying to get that tape in. I did it. And I remember just like, I did the tape and I was like, whatever, whatever. I'm done.
They just booked you off the tape.
Yeah.
You never had what?
No, I know. I think I'm not sure. Because I obviously don't know like the entire casting process. But I know that they had my twin sister cast already.
Okay.
Madeline. Sure. And so, and I think they were like hurting to find someone. Like I think they had auditions and stuff and hadn't found the right fit. And so my tape kind of came in pretty late in the process.
Interesting.
And I think I fit what they were going for. and I looked enough like Madeline that they were like, all right, get him in here, put him in a salon, dye his hair red.
It's so funny. Because I
Yeah.
remember, so I remember like, I don't exactly remember how this went, but I know that it took them months and months and months to cast Archie. I remember
Yeah.
this. I remember that all the breakdowns for that show were going around for like 4 or 5 months, and they saw just so many people. Because I think by the time they brought me in to read for Archie, I think they had already been casting the role for like 4 months or something like
Oh
that.
wow, yeah.
And I remember, I mean, I could be like misremembering it, but at that point in the game, I was out. I was out of the acting game totally. I was
Yeah.
just repped by a commercial agent and print, and I wasn't doing anything. And I had known David from years earlier on other auditions, and I think he like saw an Instagram video or something like that. I don't exactly know. I've never asked him, but I think he just like was reminded that I existed and then reached out to my agent because he just was like, "We can't find a guy for this." So
Yeah.
like, you know what
Well,
I mean?
it makes sense
Let's
too, yeah, because I know they were going for somebody who could like sing as well, for
right,
that
right,
role.
right.
So it makes
I
sense
did,
they brought
yeah.
you in.
And I played a Bruno Mars song, I think, in the audition. If I remember
Nice.
correctly. I tried my best to look really young, but hard for me to do at this point. Hard for me to get away with it at this point.
Amen.
Yeah, but so all right, so you book that, you go in, you start filming it. The show premieres, it gets a huge reaction. So then tell me about the next year when the show's on and kind of like, were you just full of energy? Like, get me out there. I want to do more stuff. I want to work on more stuff. Like, what was that year like?
Yeah, it was interesting, man. Like I mean, obviously we're filming the first season throughout the whole time, and so I'm kind of wrapped up in that for the year because like the show premieres, right? Or I think I'm trying to remember the process. They go to upfronts, I think after we filmed the pilot. And then I remember where I was when I found out that the show was going to series, like when it got picked up. I was sitting like in a restaurant with some of my acting friends here in LA, and I think I like got an email or I saw like just like a weird like I think I just like saw it on Google or something. It's like, oh, they pick up CW picks up Riverdale for series, and I was just like, oh wow, hey, we're going to series, and so like all my friends congratulated me. I remember I like texted Cole Sprouse and KJ, and I was like, hey, I guess we're celebrating. And then throughout the next year, we were filming the show, But yeah, when I would like come back, it was like that. I was just like, I want to keep going, I want to work. And it was actually tough. I remember after the first season of Riverdale premiered, I think I went like 6 months without an audition.
Really?
Yeah. It was definitely like a sobering moment, a humbling moment because I remember when we found out that the show was premiering, all my friends, or that it got picked up to series, my friends were like, you're never gonna have to worry again. Like you're set,
Yeah.
And that was just not the case at all. Like the show premiered and, it did really well. And that was, I mean, it was amazing for me to be a part of that show, and and like it came with a fan base and an opportunity to like try, like you said, travel the world and meet with so many different people. But as far as just like straight roles and auditions and work related, like acting work related stuff, it was pretty barren for a while, and I think it was due to a couple factors, like my hair was cherry red. Which is a pretty niche thing, like not a lot of people are casting lead roles with bright orange hair. And that, that's part of it. And then I had some like struggling with my representation, a little like back and forth, trying to, I think, like motivate them to, for us to like keep working. Like I said, it was humbling and it was sobering, but I wasn't in like dire straits by any means, because I was still filming the show, and and then work did come along. I've had some great opportunities since then. So
talk to me about some of that stuff, man. Like, I mean, I release to patrons every single week with these interviews, or it's a new thing I'm doing that they can submit a couple questions, and I have a few questions for people that wanted to ask you some stuff. So I'll get to that in
Oh,
a
yeah.
second. But talk to me
Okay.
about actually maybe I'll start with one now because this could kind of lead into a story. So from Pardis Jesadasan, who's double diamond. He's a double diamond member of the Nerd Network and
Okay.
also a general in the Action Army over on Action Industries. He's got a two-part question for you. Trevor Stines, what is your dream project that you've always wanted to do? And is there a specific actor that you'd like to work with in the near future?
Oh man, that's a good question. So for as far as a dream project goes, like I think most people, if they're familiar with me at all, like already know the answer. Like because it's always been my dream to play a superhero.
Yeah.
That's a big reason like why I got into acting because I'm a huge I've always been like a huge superhero geek my entire life. I'm looking at my shelf full of comics over here. Um, and I feel kind of sheepish saying that, because like nowadays we live in such a diverse superhero media landscape where people who book roles like that, I mean, it makes their careers. They're the most popular IPs in the world right now, especially as far as like film goes. And so getting a role like that, it changes your life. So, I mean, everybody wants to play a superhero. That's kind of the thing that everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
And it feels a little unfair. I feel like a hipster. I'm like, well, I wanted to do that before it was popular. But that's just how it goes, So now there's a lot more competition for roles like that, and I believe that it'll happen. I have to, or else I'll be depressed. As far as like an actor, and I wanted to say like there actually is another project that I've been working on developing. It's still in the writing process right now, but it's a show that I've been working on, and honestly, like I'm like more passionate about this project than I think I've ever been about anything as far as the industry goes. Like I want to tell this story so bad, and I'm so excited, and I hope talking about it doesn't bite me in the ass in case it never happens. But fingers crossed.
Cool, man. You're writing it and you're developing it? Are you working on it with anybody, or is it just like a purely original idea?
Yeah, it's an original idea. I had a friend of mine who's also from Seattle, actually, kind of helped me work out some kinks with the pilot episode. Like I said, it's a show, but I'm writing the thing myself, and yeah, and I'm very excited. I've had some like people take a look at it. I've had some like interest expressed, but it's not at a place writing wise right now that I feel comfortable like really letting it out into the world. So we'll see how it goes. I was actually working on it right before I hopped on this call. So as far as acting with somebody goes, gosh, it's funny. I was just thinking about this the other day, but there are a lot of actors that I find really inspiring. Like Natalie Portman, Idris Elba, Denzel Washington are all like actors that I find just like very compelling. John Bernthal, I would love to work with. That guy, I mean, he looks like he would eat meat for breakfast, but I'm here for it. I think he's a phenomenal actor.
He's been in so many things these last few years, man. Like he's one of those guys where his batting average in my mind the last 5 years is like off the charts. Almost like everything he's in, I love.
He's been killing it. Like he did Punisher, and then he's been in like some great movies. He's in The Accountant, Wind River, like so
Wind
many.
River is one of my favorites. I love that
mine
movie.
too. That's the real thing for me, man. Like for me, the top two people that I want to work with in the industry are Taylor Sheridan, who wrote and directed Wind River, and Denis Villeneuve. Like those two, like my favorite screenwriter and my favorite director. I mean, I would give up my firstborn child to work with them.
Which of the three Sheridan movies are your favorite? Is your favorite?
I think it's got to be Wind River.
Yeah.
I rewatched Hell or High Water like last week, and it's great. But there's just something, and Sicario is a really great movie directed by Denis Villeneuve. But there's something about Wind River, man. It just, the performances and the story, it's just so amazing. Like you know, I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine. He kind of Wind River kind of rubs him the wrong way because he says that there's like this element of white saviorism, right? Because it's takes place in this Native American community, and then Jeremy Renner stars, and he's a white guy who's like solving the problems. But and I can definitely see that, I can see where that's coming from. But I think the movie does a really good job of showing you like how ingrained his character is in this community and like how personal it is to him.
Yeah.
So, you see what you want to see, but yeah, I love Wind River.
The movie's so good. I always think that's such an interesting criticism of film, because I think their criticisms like that are very valid, but they're also difficult to confront, because if the idea that having a story like that and a white character coming in from out of town to save the day, and I guess to some degree also because Elizabeth Olsen is also a white character, you have multiple angles of it, but it's like a lot of the problems that are caused in that situation are caused by white assholes. So like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? So like it's also the villain, but then also, does that mean that you can't tell a story with a white character coming in to do that without it being a white savior story? And I'm not saying I have any opinion on this or know what's right. I guess I just, from one white guy to another who hears that criticism and like ponders it and thinks about putting it into my own narrative when I criticize film, because I try to learn from the shit that I hear about. I don't know how to confront those ideas and actually contextualize them in a way that I feel like, what's the rule? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think what is smart about Wind River is like Jeremy Renner's whiteness, for lack of a better term. It kind of actually serves a function in the story, because like I said, he in the story, he is still kind of an outsider, even though he's very entrenched in the community, right? Like his ex-wife, his daughter are both Native, and he lives on the reservation. He's very, like, you see in the film, like he's very friendly, or at least familiar with all of the residents of the reservation. And when Elizabeth Olsen's character comes in, I believe I haven't watched it in a little while, but like nobody wants to talk to her, right?
Yeah.
And and Jeremy Renner is somebody who like kind of has a foot in both worlds. He kind of is her. He's like her way in to trying to figure out, like, solve this mystery, So I think it actually serves a very valuable purpose in the story. And as far as like the whole aspect of like white saviorism or whatever, like I think it has to be, if you have, a white character who is getting involved with a non-white community, I think it has to be done like in a very careful and considerate way. I think Wind River succeeds at that, but I think like if you're going to tell a story where there is somebody who's Caucasian who's like, getting involved, it has to be done like I said, in a careful and considerate way.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation happening right now about media representation, obviously, and there are far larger issues at work right now with the Black Lives Matter movement than representation on television. Though I do think that there's a top-down effect of how that actually affects culture and how that actually plays with racism. But I mean, there was controversy recently on Riverdale about this. Vanessa Morgan was speaking up publicly about how I'm paraphrasing here, but I did read the article that, a lot of the storylines for the Black characters were like supporting storylines. They weren't, main front and center storylines, and that was a problem. I heard Riverdale, they made a statement that they were going to come out and basically fix this in seasons going forward.
Yeah. I was really happy to see that. And I saw some of the other people of color who are part of the cast kind of echoing Vanessa's thoughts. And I was really happy to see that, like, I know that the people over at Riverdale and the writers, the people who are kind of running the production, they've always like attempted to be, I guess, progressive, in their depictions. Right. I mean, you could argue that some of that has like appeared as tokenism. I think it might be a matter of opinion. It might not. I can't really speak on that, but I'm glad that they had a chance to like voice those concerns and like voice a platform to voice their struggles being a part of the show. I think like a big problem is that like there are, I guess, like 5 lead actors. The characters are all based on these like pre-established
Right. They're all from a comic
comic
book,
book
and
characters.
they're all white people.
They're all
That's the
they're all
comic
white
book.
people. Exactly. You have characters who have evolved over time, right? Like Reggie is now gay in the comics, and he's gay in the show, and the Pussycats are people of color and things like that. And maybe it's time for like more established characters, like maybe the core 5 to change like that. But I think for me, like just as an actor on the show, like all of that is kind of above my pay grade. Like
Yeah, I know.
I'm really proud of the other actors on the show to have had a chance to speak out, and I would hope that the Riverdale people like make good on this idea, because like I said, they always, I think, have made an effort to include diversity in many different forms on the show. And if it hasn't always like panned out in a like super 3D and like fully fleshed out way, then that's something that they can improve on.
Definitely, yeah. And I think one thing that you make a point there that is one that I pay a lot of attention to is that, like, the effort being made by those creative people on the show to be progressive. Just because they're making an effort doesn't mean there's not still space to learn.
Right.
And that's
exactly,
not the lesson for me to teach, but it's certainly one that I can observe. I know so many people in Los Angeles who I think are really smart, progressive people who I will still pick up notes of, like, inherent bias where I'm like, and it's probably good for you to listen and learn, because I've certainly had my lessons to learn through all of this major media attention and this movement that is getting so much like force and momentum right now. It's an important time to listen and to learn, because you think you understand, but I think most of us don't really all the way.
100%. I was actually thinking about this today, because like what you said about kind of the top down effects that like racism and racial bias can have like on our media and things. I thought that was really interesting, and it was something that I was thinking about earlier today, that I was really lucky actually too, and I was blessed to grow up with some really great Black or otherwise people of color like role models in media. And I realize that in itself is a privilege, right? To be able to watch movies and shows that have like main Black actors, and like be inspired by them and look up to them and those characters. It's a privilege because like I obviously would also have a wide variety of white role models, and people of color don't always get that same opportunity, right? To have people to look up to in media growing up. And I think it's important. I think like the industry has started shifting. Behind the scenes, you hear everybody talking about how like how castings are moving for more like diverse casting and things, and it might be cynical. Like I feel like part of it is Hollywood moving this way because they know that that's what's going to make them money, because like that's what people want to see. But I know in some corners there is an earnest effort being made to tell authentic stories, and give people of color that opportunity to both tell stories and be inspired by stories that are authentic to them, which I think is amazing. I think that's really, it's where the direction of Hollywood needs to move.
Yeah. I completely agree, and I understand your point about the sort of cynicism of that. I think it's an astute observation, because we all know that a lot of these very successful business practices come from people that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, that have decades of ingrained behavior that's hard to change. It takes a little bit more hustle to change it than just one conversation. And so I think some of those hirings, they are, it's easy to criticize and roll your eyes at them, but just because you as an industry insider sees it that way, that black kid who sees a black guy on television in the lead role of his show, whether or not that casting happened for a cynical reason, he's still seeing that. That
Yeah,
still matters
exactly.
to him.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's still, and he's not going to know about why. He's just going to know that it happened, and that's going to matter to him growing up and to his kids. And so
Yeah.
that's where I think ultimately the end product is more important than the process of which it happens. So
exactly.
But,
sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna like expound more. I was gonna say like, yeah, you know, like Uncle Phil was like a father to me, right, growing up.
Yeah.
And you know, now that I'm an adult, like I can recognize that is way less important for me than it is for any person of color who doesn't, like I said, doesn't get the same opportunity to see people who look like them, you know, like in that role. So I'm glad things are changing, even if it's not always like golden hearted. The result is, I think, the most important thing.
Agreed. So the next question here we have for you is from a Diamond member of the Nerd Network and Douglas Emmett. Hey, Trevor, I really enjoyed you in Riverdale and the mystery with your character. Do you have any interesting stories from your time on the set of Riverdale, and what was the most demanding aspect of your role in the show? I'm sure you have plenty of interesting stories, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. There are definitely plenty of interesting stories. You know, like, I mean, getting to work on a set is always going to be interesting, especially when it's still something that's new. Like when I did Riverdale, it was the it was the largest production I'd ever been a part of. You know, the highest budget, the most people, all that stuff, the most professional, and it was something that I'd never been exposed to before. Really, like I remember when I flew up, because we shot in Vancouver, Canada. And so I flew from Los Angeles to Vancouver, and they flew me out first class, right? And I'd never flown above coach before, you know, above economy. No. It was honestly so embarrassing because like I sat next to this guy who clearly, like, you know, he flies this way all the time. Yeah. And I just didn't know how anything worked. And they, like, at the beginning, they like came by, like handed everybody a menu for like lunch, and then they came by later and they were like, so have you decided on lunch? And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm looking at the menu and I don't see any prices. Like, how much do they cost? And the guy who I'm sitting next to just kind of like looks at me, and very, very sweetly, but like he could see that I was wet behind the ears. He was just like, yeah, it's complimentary. And I was like, oh, then I'll have the chicken. And it was, the whole flight was like that. Like, I didn't know how anything worked up there. The most demanding aspect of the role is, I don't know. I've never really thought about that before. Like, I mean, obviously we had some long nights and things like that. Things that were like physically taxing, but I don't think that, I mean, I always feel like lucky to have long nights on set, you know, there's rarely ever a place I'd rather be, you know?
Yeah.
I think the most demanding aspect, and this might not be like a character thing, but the most demanding aspect for me was I think the social aspect of it. Like just being kind of around these people who I didn't know all that well. Obviously I would like get to know them more later on. But you know, from the actors to the crew and everybody, it just seemed like everybody knew what they were doing way more than me, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, it just seemed like I just felt like a tiny fish in a really big pond, you know? And I was intimidated. I was professional, I hope. You know, and it was just a learning experience, you know, and I went in like wanting to learn as much as possible. And it was just another one of those things that, like I said, was really humbling.
Did you buddy up with anybody? Is there a cast member who became like your person that you'd kind of always, you know, chat with, hang out with?
Yeah. I mean, like, everybody on the set is pretty friendly. And, but I would say that like the person I kind of like hooked onto the most was, he plays Joaquin. His name is Rob Rocco.
Yeah. That's great.
He's a really cool guy. And, it sucked because like we didn't have a ton of days together on set, but like whenever we did, and and I've actually like seen him around here in LA. I've seen him up in Vancouver when we've been like working on different projects and stuff. But yeah, him and I always like get along really well.
So we've talked then about, Riverdale and obviously some of your dreams, what you'd want to do next. And so you mentioned you're writing this project, you're working on it. Is that like sort of the writing, producing your own stuff? Is that a little bit of the next step for you as well? Is that a big thing you're trying to step into?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, because I always say that like, I'm an actor, like I don't want to do anything else. I just want to act, and but that like has obviously proven to be untrue, because like I also am a writer and a poet and things like that. But like acting is the thing that really inspires me, and I want to act and more than anything else. And I think the thing is that like I'm also just very keenly aware that there are specific stories that I want to tell, and I won't always like get the opportunities to tell those specific stories if I'm just like waiting for somebody to give me permission to do it. So yeah, like I have gotten a lot more into writing and the idea of producing and pitching and really being like being a vehicle for the things that I want to do as a performer and as an entertainer. Like the two people I think that I am like most inspired by are like Donald Glover and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So like Donald Glover, he is a man of tomorrow. He is by all accounts like so creative. He has got his foot in every possible like creative field. Stand-up comedy, writing, producing, acting, music, everything.
Exactly.
I mean, that guy, I mean, it's just crazy, and like, I want to do something like that, just because I don't want to compare myself to Donald Glover. That guy's a genius. But I also like have things that I want to do. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge is somebody who, she did a play that became one of the most popular television shows of the generation, and is like Emmy winning, and is now working on like huge movies. And she did it all herself. It was a one-woman show that she then like wrote every episode of the television show for.
Well, it does seem kind of like that's the model now. If you're out here and you really want to figure out a way to next level, you have to diversify and you have to create your own opportunities. And I'm not saying that every opportunity is going to work, and I'm not saying that diversifying and every one of the things you're involved in is going to be successful, but you throw a lot of things at the wall and you definitely see what sticks. So I have two more questions for you, but before I get to them, I do want to remind everybody here who's watching right now, we are kind of a brand new channel still. We've only been around for a couple months here. So if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do it. Oh, I got a banner here I can throw on screen. Here we go. Don't forget to leave a comment below and hit subscribe, and leave a comment, obviously, with your thoughts on Trevor. You can go follow him on social media. Are you just at Trevor Stines, or is there an underscore in there somewhere?
There's an underscore. Yeah. So it's at Trevor_Stines.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Leave your thoughts about me as long as they're nice.
As long as they're nice. Yeah.
Trevor's
like the nicest guy I've ever met. So be kind. Wow. And of course, you guys heard there's questions from the patrons. So go to patreon.com/nerdsandsuits. We have this private studio sessions. You can ask questions of the guests on the shows and lots of cool ways to interact. So go check that out. But I do want to ask you, because you mentioned comic books, and just very recently on this show, I talked to everybody about the fact that, Coy Jandreau, you know who that is? You know Coy, right?
Yes, I do. Of course. Yeah. Love Coy.
So Coy and I have been talking a little bit about doing maybe like a comic book type of show. And when you mentioned that, I mean, I feel like you're a shoo-in to come on that show. So, because I grew up, I don't know if you know this, but I grew up as a massive comic book guy. I have 6,000 comics in my mom's basement. As a child, that was my entire life.
Wow.
So, through like 2005, that's like my whole everything. So when you say you've got all these comic books, like what do you like? Are you a DC guy, a Marvel guy? Do you like more indie press stuff? What do you gravitate towards?
Yeah, I read a lot of everything, honestly. A lot of DC, a lot of Marvel, a lot of indie stuff. Well, not a lot of indie stuff. I've been trying to expand more into indie stuff, but I mean, like I just try to look for especially when it comes to like independently published or like creator owned comics, try to look for stories that interest me. Like Saga is obviously an amazing
Saga's amazing,
story
yeah.
that I love, and you know, there are certain writers that I tend to gravitate towards. And then, you know, it's kind of that like comic book nerd thing where you just like you kind of pick up whatever's new from the character that you like. So,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm obsessed with Daredevil, right? Like I love
Yep.
Daredevil, so I'm reading through the current run on him, and it's really good. I mean, Daredevil's a character that's had, I mean, like he's had probably one of the most consistently well written stories in comics ever. Like from
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go, if
like
you go back, right? So the Frank Miller stuff is obviously very
yeah,
iconic, you know, and I like some of that stuff. I like the second run better, the Born Again run. That's the one that I
right,
really
exactly.
love. You know, the
I was gonna
Monticello
say
stuff.
like from Born Again to now, it's all at least in my opinion, it's like all been really good. It's kind of crazy how consistent
Yeah.
he's well written.
Yeah, it's also like, you know, Bendis had his, I mean, Bendis probably did that book for 5 years or something, 6 years before Brubaker took it over, I remember. And I know when he was doing it, like it kind of redefined a little bit of like the idea of the way that superhero characters are going to get written for like this new millennium. Cause I think it's
Yeah.
around 2000 or a little while after there. And people had done cool stuff like that, but there's definitely a grittiness and a darkness to that run.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
like built.
Bendis.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Bendis is the one who took Daredevil and made him like a noir crime
Yeah.
drama. Like I've watched interviews of him talking about it. Like he like wanted this character to be this like really gritty, really grounded noir, and Alex Maleev's art on that run like really helped cement this thing as like this like dark, bloody story. And you know, and they really play with like Matt's like depression, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's why part of why Daredevil is such a great character is that he like just really struggles with his mental health, and that's something that a lot of, you know, people can relate to. God, I love Daredevil as a character. Wow.
He always was. I mean, he always next. So for me, it was always Iron Man was my favorite, and this was way before Tony Stark in the movies. This is
right. Yeah.
I have every Iron Man comic from Tales of Suspense 39 all the way through like the Warren Ellis stuff from 2005. I collected them all as a kid. That was my big pursuit, was to collect them all. I went to comic conventions and I would like load up guys' trucks and stuff. I have really beat up copies of Tales of Suspense 39 and Iron Man 1.
That's awesome.
But Iron Man comics are always kind of bad. Like for the most part, there's only a few good Iron Man comics. They're mostly like really shitty. Like they got better later. But Daredevil was always my other favorite. Daredevil and Batman were the two others. Yeah, I'm a huge Daredevil guy. So like I really love the Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale Daredevil Yellow story from however long ago it was. I always really loved that one. But yeah, I watched the Daredevil stuff on Netflix when it was coming out. I didn't watch all that stuff, but I definitely watched all the Daredevil stuff because I thought Charlie Cox just fucking crushed it.
Dude, he's amazing. Like I kind of hear his voice when I read Matt Murdock now.
Yeah. So is it good right now? There's a good run happening now, or you're catching up on older stuff?
Yeah, no, the Chip Zdarsky's run right now it's pretty good. I'm definitely liking it. I'm a few issues behind. I've actually got a few issues sitting right there that I need to read. But also like since comic book stores like shut down, I haven't been able to pick up new comics. I know I can like order them, and I think the one by my apartment is doing like curbside pickup, so I just need to go and grab the new issues. But yeah. Reading that. I've actually also been reading like Star Wars comics because another thing that I'm obsessed with is Star Wars. Like I love Star Wars, probably an unhealthy amount. So I've been reading like the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, Charles Soule's Daredevil, Charles Soule did write Daredevil and it was amazing, but his Darth Vader, that's another thing I've been reading recently. So
how do you think you would do in the Star Wars Showdown League?
It'd be no contest. I would be out after round one. Like I know a lot about Star Wars, right? Yeah, like I am a huge Star Wars geek. I know a ton of stuff. And then I watch the Star Wars Schmodown, the level of detail that they add, like these questions. I'm like, I have no idea.
Have you watched any of the it's all on Twitch right now. They're doing it all. It's all being streamed right now as a digital tournament, and it's an 8-player tournament. It just started.
The recent one. Yeah, no, I haven't yet.
Dude, so my faction mate Andrew DiMolanta, he's 0-2 going into the season, but we drafted him because we thought he had all the promise in the world. I knew that he was a champion in the making. He went against Joseph Scrimshaw in the first round of the tournament. Scrimshaw, if you've watched any of his stuff, I mean, Scrimshaw knows a lot, and he had taken Alex Damon, who Star Wars Explained, to the limit. He took him to the limit last year in Chicago and almost beat him. And DiMolanta played Scrimshaw in the first round, and I'm not kidding, dude. They went both perfect and the bonus in round 1, so 11-11. Round 2, they both got a perfect 10 points, no multiple choice, 10 for 10. Ooh. Round 3, they both hit their 2-pointer, their 3-pointer, and their 5-pointer. So double perfect games, 31-31 at the end of regulation. Goes to overtime. The question is, what does Darth Vader say to Luke is the only thing powerful enough to destroy him? And DiMolanta writes down Luke's hatred, and Scrimshaw writes down Luke, and they both get it correct, but DiMolanta challenges that it's correctly Luke's hatred, not Luke, and he wins it on a technicality.
That's how the match ended. Amazing! Oh my gosh, I'm gonna watch some Schmodown right after this.
The Star Wars matches are fucking crazy. That was one of the craziest matches I've ever seen.
It's just because they're so detailed, and the thing is there's a finite number of movies, right? So the more questions you ask, the less pool of questions that you have to draw from.
It's deeper.
Yeah, exactly. So every Star Wars competition, the questions just get more detailed and more crazy.
I think you should think about it, because if you love it to the unhealthy degree you're saying, I think you could do it. I made a claim yesterday on air. This is outrageous, but I think I believe it. I said I said 60 days I could win the Star Wars belt. If you gave me 60 days to study it.
Damn. All right. All right.
Probably a ridiculous thing to say, but I feel like I could do it, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, hey man, I believe in you. You're the best Schmodown player. Let's be honest. You're the GOAT.
Well, I'll take it from you. I'm Dan Merle's the GOAT, but I'll take the compliment. So,
he's
my last question.
He's the guy.
My last question for you before we get out of here is, and this is one I've just started asking people the last few interviews, because I think this is an interesting question. What is the most important thing you own?
Most important thing I own?
Yeah.
Huh. I'm looking around my room right now. I'm trying to figure it out. That's a really good question. Wow, you're really making me think. I don't something that I guess a lot of people don't know about me is I'm very I don't have a lot of things. I don't buy things really, and I don't own a lot. I think especially because in LA I've moved a lot, so I'm always downsizing and getting rid of whatever, and I just don't have a lot of attachments to personal items. The most important thing I own is probably I've got this this little foldable picture frame. It's this big. It's very small. But it's been in my family since I was very, very young. My father had a picture of him and me in this little foldable frame, and I think there are some other pictures in it too, but that's the one that stands out in my memory, that he gave to me after I moved to Los Angeles. I think he sent it as part of a Christmas gift a couple years after I moved here, and it's just got a picture of him and me when I was really young, and that's probably I'm thinking if my apartment was burning down, what would I grab? It'd probably be that, honestly.
That's awesome. That's a good answer.
Yeah, I also have this I'm grabbing it right now, but I also have this limited edition 20th anniversary Star Wars medallion.
Oh, cool.
It's got a stormtrooper on the back.
That's pretty fucking sweet.
And it's super I got it as a gift. This guy had 2 of them, and he gave it to me because he knew I love Star Wars. I think there are only 20 of these. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure. I have to look it up.
But it's awesome. And you love it. It's like a challenge. Is it a challenge coin? Is that what it is?
I honestly am not sure. Because he gave it to me and I wasn't sure like what it was.
Yeah.
But it's from the 501st Legion, I think. And they only made like a certain number of them.
Okay,
It's
very
pretty
cool.
cool. It's probably like the
Yeah,
rarest thing that I own.
that's
For
awesome.
sure.
Yeah, because when I ask this question to people, sometimes they turn it around on me and they say, "What?" And I don't know how to answer it because
Yeah.
I've got a couple things that I own that are cool, and I have some instruments.
I was gonna say it's your
that are
guitar, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got three, and I love them all. I have a guitar I got from my grandfather. I have one that I bought 10 years ago, and I've got one that I bought about 6 years ago. I actually just started. This is a thing I haven't talked about to anybody. I talked about this on a stream the other day, but I like for this album, I really want a new guitar. I like really would like to get a new guitar. I haven't bought a new guitar in like 6 years, and so it's never really a necessary idea because
Didn't you
there's no
just post
character.
about a guitar like
I
that you
did. I
wanted
just
this
put
new
it on.
guitar that you wanted?
So it's a Gibson Hummingbird, which is like the most famous and classic Gibson acoustic electric guitar. It's like if you go back and you look in the 60s, like it's that guitar where the pickguard has like the hummingbirds on it, and it's
Right.
the Beach Boys played it and the Rolling Stones played it and Tom York plays one and like Sheryl Crow. So it's like Gibson's very famous guitar, and even the lowest end studio model is like $2,000, but like the normal standard one that's like the actual one is like 4 or 5 grand. Which like there's just no way. Like I don't even
Yeah.
remotely have close to the amount of money to be able to spend 5 grand on a guitar. That's like so beyond me. But I
Yeah.
still am like thinking about like that's the dreams to figure out a way to get. I mean, I played a studio model the other day at the store, the one that's like $2,000, and it was
Yeah.
just beautiful. And I was like, I feel like if I owned a hummingbird, maybe that's the answer to the question.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I just want that. I feel like I'm at that next phase where like that's the goal now is to get that. So
That's awesome, man. That's cool.
sometime.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you this too because you said you like Daredevil, but I got as a gift, I got this like replica
Oh, cool.
Daredevil helmet from the show. Oh
Oh,
man,
dude, that looks great.
yeah, I love this thing because like I said, I love Daredevil. I love the show, and I got that as a gift, and it sits up here on right next to my
On the
bed where
mantle?
it belongs. Yeah.
So you've put it on several times and looked in the mirror and been like, I could do this.
Too
No,
many
never?
times, man. Too many
Yeah,
times
so
I've
many
done that.
times.
I'll just like say Daredevil quotes as I'm like wearing this helmet.
Yeah, you'd be
Oh,
a good Daredevil. I feel like you actually would you would fit really well with the character.
thank you,
I'm only
man.
just
I
thinking about it from
really
looking at your
appreciate that.
face now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what's funny? Like Daredevil is one of those characters that would be a dream to play, but I would like right now I would also feel bad because I think Charlie Cox did such a good job.
Yeah.
That I'd be like, man, it's like trying to follow up on. Well, I was gonna say it's like trying to follow up on Heath Ledger's Joker, where you just like it's not going to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't. It was just way weirder and strange ways, darker in some strange ways. But
Yeah,
I have to tell you, after just rewatching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm actually almost convinced that Leo should have won the Oscar for that movie. I like think
dude.
that I think that Joaquin was so good, but I like have no interest in ever rewatching Joker. But I've now watched Once Upon a Time like 5 times, and I think it's Leo's maybe his best role. He's
That
just like
scene,
so good in that movie.
that scene where he is in his trailer after like messing up his lines,
Yeah.
is probably one of the best scenes in cinema history. Like
Yeah,
that
it's so
is
good.
gold. That's pure gold. That scene is amazing.
He's like, you forget your lines.
He's like looking in the mirror.
Goddamn practice. Baboon. Your goddamn alcohol. Drew and I always laugh about this. This is like our favorite line in the movie. He goes, 8 whiskey sours, Rick. You couldn't have stopped at 3 or 4. I had to have 8.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's amazing. Yeah, Joaquin's performance in Joker was it was definitely like really good. Joker as a movie, like I felt kind of conflicted on. Like I think it's beautiful in some aspects.
Yeah.
Like the music is amazing. I think Joaquin's performance is stellar. But yeah, like Leo in Once Upon a Time he shows a lot of like range, a lot of commitment. Man, he has so many amazing scenes in that film.
Underrated,
I want to say,
underrated.
yeah, I want to say that it's his best performance, but I actually haven't seen The Revenant. So
He's great in Revenant. It's just a harder. It's like a not as enjoyable of a movie to watch. But he's great in a lot of stuff. I mean, he's phenomenal in Wolf. There's so many good movies. But
yeah.
In any case, man, I'm keeping you way over your time. So thank you so much for coming on and doing the show. I really appreciate this. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to Trevor. Go follow him on Instagram, on Twitter. He's often tweeting about Oreos and other things of that nature.
Guilty as charged.
Sponsored, yeah. and hopefully we'll have you back on for a follow up next time, man. I am.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was super fun.
To Michael and the gang. They got to watch this. I feel like this would be enjoyable for them.
Yeah, it'll be really cool. Yeah, this was a ton of fun. I appreciate you having me on. It was really fun to just like get to sit down and chat and talk about some things that we're passionate about. So thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll be back same time, same place next week. I'm not sure who next week's guest is yet, but stay tuned on Twitter, Nerds and Suits, and of course the Patreon for updates on that. Thanks again, Trevor.
And that wraps it up, guys. Thanks for sticking around for another episode of A Great Conversation. Trevor Stines was a legend for giving me an hour 20 of his time. Love talking about all that stuff. Big time thank you to all of my Double Diamond members of the Nerd Network. I've got AJ Lancaster, Nikki Therese, Partis Jessa Dawson, Philip Gustafson, Joseph Boros, and Brienne Chandler, as well as a big thank you to Party J and Douglas Emmett for submitting your questions for Trevor. That was really cool to get to ask him some stuff that you guys wanted to know. Remember, patrons at the platinum level and above can submit their questions every single week for the guests. I'll be announcing my next guest here in the next couple of days. Also, if you haven't checked out the Patreon, go to Nerds and Suits, patreon.com/Nerds and Suits. You can see all the different levels there. Once I get to 100 patrons, I'm doing my first live streamed show. We're almost halfway there. So thank you to everybody for supporting, and please leave a comment, hit like, subscribe, all the things that we always ask you to do, because a comment on this video boosts it in the algorithm and will make this video more successful. So even if it's just a heart, even if it's just Trevor's hair is red, whatever you want to write, leave a comment and it would mean a lot. So thanks, guys, and have a good one.